The golden sun dipped low over the quiet edge of the small suburban town, casting long shadows on the cracked sidewalks and rusted fences. Outside a rundown animal shelter that barely made it through each month, a little girl with messy pigtails stood next to a crate lined with a tattered blanket and a tiny golden retriever puppy. Her cheeks were flushed, her jacket too thin for the early spring chill, and her eyes, they held a weight no child should ever carry. He clutched a handwritten sign in crayon, edges fluttering in the breeze. "Please buy our puppy. We need help." Cars passed. Some slowed down, some didn't. A few people offered pitiful glances, but no one stopped. Until a sleek black Escalade rolled to the curb. The man who stepped out was sharp in a dark grey overcoat, shoes polished like mirrors, his jawline rigid, expression unreadable. He had the kind of presence that made people straighten up, the kind of gaze that instantly separated leaders from followers. He didn't come here often, or ever. This was off his path, way beneath the neighborhoods he usually walked. But something about the child's voice pierced through the white noise in his mind. "Sir," she said softly, her voice nearly drowned by the hum of traffic. "Will you please buy our puppy? He's really sweet, and we really need the money." The man looked down. The girl couldn't have been more than 7. Dirt smudged her knees. She wore mismatched gloves and boots 2 sizes too big. Her fingers trembled as she stroked the sleeping puppy. A cardboard box beside her held a few dog toys, some half-empty packets of kibble, and a photo of the puppy's mother with scribbled letters. "We had to say goodbye." He didn't speak, not yet. He knelt down slowly, eyeing the puppy, then her. "Where are your parents?" he asked, voice stern but not unkind. The little girl looked away. "Mom's inside. She works here now, but she cries at night, says she can't pay rent anymore. They fired her from the big office last month." The man's eyes narrowed, the silence thick between them. "Do you know where she used to work?" he asked. She nodded, innocent and unaware. "In the tall building downtown, the one with the glass windows and shiny doors. She wore heels and lipstick. I remember 'cause I used to help her pick her earrings in the morning. She said she was gonna get a promotion." He felt something twist in his gut. A name rose from memory like a ghost. Rebecca Myers, smart, loyal, single mom. She'd worked in accounting. There had been budget cuts, downsizing, board pressure. He remembered seeing her termination file. The system flagged her as expendable. He hadn't thought twice. But now, he was looking into the eyes of the person who paid the price. The little girl leaned closer, lowering her voice as if confessing a secret. "We have to sell the puppy. We don't have much food left. Mummy's always tired. And she said if we can't pay by Friday we have to leave our house. I think she's scared." The man swallowed hard. Behind him the sky had begun to darken, streetlights flickering to life. The puppy stirred, whimpering softly in the crate. "What's his name?" he asked. "Lucky," the girl said, "but I think I'm the unlucky one." For a man who negotiated billion-dollar deals, who led one of the most powerful corporations in the state, there was nothing in that moment that prepared him for the crack in her voice, the depth of raw truth behind her words. He didn't speak again. He stood, walked inside the shelter, and came face to face with Rebecca. She froze when she saw him. Her hands were still wet from washing kennels. Her eyes widened with disbelief, then panic. She reached instinctively for her apron, as if to shield herself. "Miss Wheatmore," she breathed. "Rebecca," he said, staring at her like seeing her for the first time, not through spreadsheets, not as a name in a list, but as a woman, holding everything together by a thread. She looked thinner, worn down, but proud. I didn't know you'd be here. I'm just working until I figure something out. Please, don't tell anyone you saw me like this." "I heard about the puppy," he said quietly. Rebecca blinked rapidly. "I didn't want her out there, but she insisted, said she had to help me, said she was tired of hearing me cry." His throat tightened. "Why didn't you call me?" he asked. She laughed bitterly. "Why would I? I was just one of many. You did what you had to, and I did what I had to. That's life, right?" But it didn't feel like life. It felt like something broken. Outside, the little girl waited, still holding the sign, unaware that her quiet plea was tearing apart the man who once signed the paper. that shattered their world. Chapter 2. The city lights below sparkled like 1,000 reminders of choices made too high up to see the ground. But now, he'd seen the ground. By morning, he'd made a decision. He drove back without his driver, pulling up outside the shelter again. This time he came with something different in his hands. A soft carrier for the puppy, a check, and an envelope. The girl was there again, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "I came for Lucky," he said. Her face lit up like sunrise. She nodded rapidly, tears already forming. "Really? You'll take care of him, forever?" "I promise," he said, "but I also came to talk to your mom." Inside, Rebecca was wiping windows when she saw him. She frowned. "What are you doing here?" He handed her the envelope. She opened it, hands trembling. "A job offer," she whispered. "And housing," he added. "It's temporary, until you're back on your feet, and full benefits, for both of you." Her voice cracked. "Why?" He met her eyes. "Because I forgot what people mean, and your daughter reminded me." Outside, the little girl knelt by the puppy crate, whispering to Lucky, "See, I told you someone would care." She didn't know the full story, didn't know the man standing in front of her was the same one who'd once cost them everything. But maybe, just maybe, he was the man who would give it all back. And maybe that puppy wasn't named Lucky by accident after all, because sometimes, redemption comes not through grand speeches or sweeping gestures, but through a whisper from a child who simply believes in good people, even when the world doesn't. And for the first time in years, as the man held the puppy close and looked at the girl who still believed in kindness, he felt something deep inside shift. Hope, a second chance, and the echo of 7 soft words that would stay with him forever. "Please buy our pup. We need help." This time, he listened, and everything changed. He didn't sleep that night. Not a single minute. 8. The glow of the city skyline filtered in through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his luxury penthouse, casting long shadows across the cold hardwood floors. The silence was loud, deafening even, for a man who had everything. Something about that little girl's whisper clung to his soul like a ghost, refusing to leave. "Please buy our puppy." The words haunted him. They didn't sound desperate. They sounded innocent, honest, raw, and that made them even more unbearable. He poured himself a glass of scotch, but it sat untouched on the counter. He paced, tugging at his tie, staring out into the sleepless city. There were no boardrooms now, no numbers to hide behind, no analysts giving him market trends. There was just a little girl standing in the cold, trying to sell the only thing she had left, because someone like him made a decision on a spreadsheet. He kept seeing her face, those big eyes, filled with something far heavier than childhood should ever hold. And Rebecca, God, he remembered her laugh from years ago in the office break room back when things felt human. She was always the first to stay late, the last to complain. She made homemade cookies every December and left them by the coffee machine with a post-it note that said "Fuel for the strong," and he'd signed her termination letter like it was just another line on a budget report. He finally sat down just before dawn, the weight of guilt pushing him lower into the leather chair. It wasn't just about righting a wrong anymore. It was about reclaiming his own humanity. By the time the sun had started to rise over the horizon, casting golden streaks across the skyline, he already had his coat on. This time, he didn't ask his driver. He got in his car alone and drove. When he pulled up to the shelter again, the parking lot was still empty. Dew clung to the grass. The air was thick with early morning stillness. And there she was, the little girl huddled beside the crate, her sign lying gently beside her, edges damp from the morning mist. Her breath formed soft clouds in the air as she looked up. "You came back," she whispered, eyes widening. He stepped closer, kneeling beside her. This time he didn't wear the businessman's armor. No suit, no tie, just a plain jacket, soft voice, and eyes that had been humbled. "I did," he said. "I came for Lucky." Her face lit up, lips parting into a smile that made his throat tighten. She reached inside the crate, lifting the sleepy puppy into her arms, and gently placed him in the soft carrier he brought. "You'll be good to him?" she asked, petting Lucky one last time. "He likes soft music at night, and warm blankets, and sometimes when he's scared you have to hold him real close, and tell him it's gonna be okay." "I can do that," he promised. She nodded slowly, then pulled something from her coat pocket. It was a small folded drawing on wrinkled paper, a crayon picture of the puppy, her and what looked like a tall man standing next to them. "I drew this last night," she said. "It's us. I thought maybe if you came back you'd want." He took the drawing with both hands, staring at it longer than he'd ever stared at any $1 million contract. It was imperfect, messy, childish, and it was the most valuable thing anyone had given him in years. Then he stood and looked toward the shelter's door. Rebecca was inside again. She was sweeping the front steps, her hair pulled back, face tired but focused. She hadn't noticed him yet. He walked toward her, and this time her face didn't freeze in panic. It softened in quiet resignation. "I don't have answers for you," she said, before he could speak. "I'm not angry, just tired. I've been trying to keep it together for her." "I know," he said softly, "and you shouldn't have had to." He handed her an envelope. She hesitated, then opened. Inside was a job offer signed by him personally. Same position she once held, but with better pay, better benefits, immediate start. And attached to it was another paper, temporary housing, clean, safe, close to work. A place where she and her daughter could start again without fear of eviction. "I don't understand," she said slowly. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I made a decision once that I thought was smart, efficient, but it was just heartless, and it cost you everything. I can't undo it, but I can make room for something better now." Tears welled in her eyes. She looked down, lips trembling. "I didn't think anyone saw us. I didn't think anyone still cared." "I didn't either," he admitted, "until I heard your daughter whisper something that shattered me." There was a long silence between them, but it wasn't awkward. It was filled with pain, regret, but also something new, maybe the start of healing. "I'll think about it," she said finally, voice breaking. "I'll wait," he replied. Outside, the little girl was sitting by the puppy's now empty crate, kicking her little legs back and forth. When she saw him return, she ran up. "Did you tell Mommy?" she asked eagerly. "I did," he said, "and I think she's going to be okay." The little girl grinned, hugged him suddenly around the waist, and whispered, "I knew someone would help us." He looked down at her and felt something crack wide open in his chest. This wasn't charity, this wasn't guilt, this was purpose, real, raw, human purpose. As he drove home that morning, the puppy nestled in the carrier beside him, the little crayon drawing on his dashboard, and the morning sun rising in his rearview mirror. He knew his life had changed forever. Not because of money, not because of power, but because one little girl, brave enough to whisper for help, reminded him that sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest truth. And from that day forward, whenever he walked through the tall glass doors of his company's headquarters, he carried Lucky's photo in his wallet, a silent promise to never look away again. Because redemption isn't about grand gestures, it's about showing up the next day, it's about listening when it's uncomfortable, and it's about choosing every single day to be the kind of person a child would believe in.